Welcome to Israel Now News. I'm Erin Viner.
And I'm Yochanan Elrom.
In today's top story, U.S. President Donald Trump is expected to unveil what's being called the Board of Peace as part of the second phase of his deal to end the Hamas war with Israel. The White House believes that everything will be in place and ready to go before the end of this year. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has a scheduled meeting with Trump in Washington on December 29th. The Board of Peace will reportedly consist of nearly a dozen Arab and Western leaders who will coordinate their efforts with an international executive board set to include U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff and Trump's former senior Middle East advisor and son-in-law Jared Kushner. The goal is for Hamas to relinquish power and disarm so that Israel can eventually withdraw from Gaza.
Getting Hamas to give up its weapons may be nearly impossible. A top Hamas official in Gaza said the terror organization will keep its weapons until a Palestinian state is established. Khalil al-Hayya also opposes international peacekeepers operating inside the war-torn enclave. The terror boss said Hamas will only accept border monitoring forces that will not be allowed within Hamas-controlled areas, and Hamas will not dismantle its arsenal.
Construction of the first U.S.-backed housing compound in Gaza has already begun in the war-scarred city of Rafah as part of President Trump's initiative to provide temporary homes for displaced residents. According to the New York Times, around a total of 6 sites will each provide makeshift communities for as many as 25,000 people and also be equipped with medical and educational facilities. The cost of the initial project is estimated to be tens of millions of dollars, and it's being built on the eastern side of the Yellow Line that is being safeguarded by the IDF. Hamas leaders rejected the plan for temporary housing in Rafah, fearing that they will completely lose power over the civilian population in the terror enclave.
More than 1,000 pastors from across the U.S. traveled to the ancient community of Shiloh in a strong show of support. Yisrael Gantz, head of the Benjamin Regional Council, welcomed the group. He said the faith leaders understand the importance of Shiloh as a holy place. They know it was the first capital of Israel 3,000 years ago, and they agree that Judea and Samaria are part of the Jewish homeland. Earlier, the evangelical ministers traveled to the site of the Nova Music Festival near the Gaza border, where nearly 400 young Israelis were slaughtered by Hamas terrorists on October 7, 2023.
Outgoing New York City Mayor Eric Adams has signed an executive order that prohibits municipal officials from taking any action against Israel or any group connected to the Jewish state. Adams, who recently visited Israel, said that the action is designed to repudiate the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement known as BDS. The executive decree specifically bars any discrimination against Israel, Israeli citizens, or entities associated with Israel in what is widely being viewed as a challenge to incoming far-left radical mayor Zohran Mamdani, who has been a longtime BDS supporter. Unfortunately, though, Mamdani will have the authority to nullify the protective measure when he assumes office on January 1st.
First, there was the Abraham Accords, and then there was talk of trying to create the Cyrus Accords between Iran and Israel. And now comes the ICEJ Accords. Argentinian President Javier Milei recently launched the ICEJ Accords during a meeting with Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar in Buenos Aires. The goal of the ICEJ Accords is to strengthen diplomatic, security, and economic cooperation between Latin America and Israel. It will also encourage other partner countries to shift the long-standing anti-Israel voting patterns that have characterized Latin American positions at the United Nations. Milei vowed to move Argentina's embassy to Jerusalem next spring. Sa'ar described the Argentine leader's connection to Judaism and Israel as sincere, powerful, and moving.
Staying on the diplomatic front, Costa Rica and Israel have agreed to sign a free trade agreement. The Central American country plans to open a trade and investment office in Jerusalem that will officially include diplomatic status. The deal was announced following a meeting between Israel's Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar and Manuel Tovar Rivera, the Costa Rican Minister of Foreign Trade. SAR said that the accord will strengthen ties between Jerusalem and San Jose in the fields of innovation and technology. A joint operation with the IDF and Israel Shin Bet Security Agency uncovered a Hamas finance network operating in Turkey under direct orders from Iran. Documents reveal that Gaza-born money changers living in Turkey are exploiting the country's financial infrastructure for terrorism. The group works in full cooperation with the fanatical Shiite regime in Tehran and has transferred hundreds of millions of dollars straight to Hamas and its top leaders.
The British Broadcasting Corporation has finally decided to tackle the issue of anti-Semitism in its own organization. The BBC has a notorious reputation of reporting misleading and sometimes false information regarding Israel and the UK Jewish community. Outgoing Director General Tim Davie ordered all employees of the once respected broadcast facility to complete mandatory training on anti-Semitism. The staff has 6 months to finish the course. The directive followed months of tense negotiations with the Board of Deputies of British Jews.
In medical news, the U.S. chip giant NVIDIA, Sheba Medical Center in Israel, and New York's Mount Sinai Hospital have announced plans to launch a new initiative aimed at decoding the majority of the human genome that until now remains poorly understood. The study hopes to unlock new pathways for disease prevention, diagnoses, and treatment. NVIDIA will contribute the computing power, and Mount Sinai will provide genetic data from 11,000 genomes deciphered at its facilities. The Sheba Medical Hospital in Israel will serve as the home base for the project.
A giant menorah, called a Hanukkah in Hebrew, has been placed at the western wall in the Old City of Jerusalem. The 8-day holiday of Hanukkah begins Sunday evening, December 14th, and runs until December 22nd. The theme of this year's celebration comes from the book of Isaiah, chapter 51, verse 11, which says, "And the redeemed of the Lord shall return. They shall come to Zion with song." It's in honor of the return of the last remaining 20 living hostages from Gaza on October 13th. Hanukkah commemorates the story of the Maccabee family, who led a successful revolt against the evil Hellenistic Empire. It culminated in the cleansing and reconsecration of the Holy Temple in Jerusalem 2,200 years ago.
Christmas celebrations have returned to the little town of Bethlehem after having been put on hold for 2 years due to the war in Gaza. City officials held a tree lighting ceremony to the delight of several thousand Christians and even Muslims who gathered in Manger Square near the Church of Nativity. Since the 7th of October in 2023, there has been little Christmas spirit in the biblical city in the wake of the genocidal assault by Hamas terrorists that took the lives of 1,200 men, women, and children in Israel. Bethlehem is heavily dependent on tourism and religious pilgrims for its economic stability. Local merchants are expressing their hope that the shaky current ceasefire will indeed become permanent.
It was a big week in Washington for the Israel Allies Foundation. IAF President Josh Reinstein praised President Donald Trump for his historic leadership and unwavering support of Israel. Trump was honored for relocating the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem, for recognizing Israeli sovereignty over the Golan Heights, for creating the Abraham Accords, and destroying Iran's nuclear capabilities, for brokering the Gaza ceasefire and obtaining the release of Israeli hostages held by Hamas terrorists. Reinstein said President Trump's commitment to Israel has altered the course of history. Another highlight of the week was the annual Chairman's Conference of the Israel Allies Foundation. Erin has that story.
Thank you, Yochanan. Yes, parliamentarians, government officials, faith leaders, and policy experts from more than 30 countries attended the Israel Allies Foundation's annual Chairman's Conference in Washington, D.C. Over 45 legislators representing Europe, Africa, Latin America, Asia, and North America took part in high-level briefings, strategic dialogue, and closed-door meetings with senior U.S. officials and members of Congress. The discussions focused on rising anti-Semitism worldwide, regional security threats, and the future of diplomatic and economic legislative cooperation between Israel and its democratic partners.
That concludes the news portion of our show. Stay tuned for Ask the Source with Josh Reinstein.
Hello and welcome to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein. We're here in our beautiful studio in Jerusalem. My guest today is Menachem Traxler. He is the founder and director of Pantry Packers. Menachem, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you.
Tell our viewers a little about what is Pantry Packers.
It's a packing facility, little factory, where we create dry goods for families in need throughout the country of Israel.
It's really interesting because I've been there with my family several times now, and you allow people to come out and pack for the needy different essentials, and you make it in an interesting way where you label it, you put it in, you pack it, you box it. Why is that important for people to actually do the work instead of just cut a check?
So that's exactly my passion. It's twofold. One is teaching tzedakah, specifically tzedakah as a family. It's easy to go fundraise and ask someone for a check. We need the kids to be involved because that's our future. And you need to teach tzedakah by hands-on, and it must be fun.
It's interesting, tzedakah is charity. It's a premise of Judaism. You're commanded to give charity to the needy, but also Christians do a lot of charity as well. It's something that kind of unites both Jews and Christians. Is charity something that unites other people around the world?
Well, it's extremely unifying. For example, how do you connect to Israel if you're not here? If you work hard, your heart and soul into working, creating money, you take part of yourself and give it to someone, it doesn't make any sense. Why would you do that? But then send it to Israel, you're able to connect to Israel, help people in Israel from anywhere in the globe. And that's actually how we started. A little bit of history. Going back to 1788, pocket of religious Jews came to Israel. They had no way to support themselves. They wrote back to Russia and they asked our founder, the first Hasidic rabbi of Lubavitch, and said, what do? We can't support ourselves. He said, stay in Israel, and started sending up funds. And he was actually arrested because at the time, Israel was the Ottoman Empire, and the Tsar was like, why are you sending money to Israel, to the Ottoman Empire? And he was put in jail for supporting Israel. This was in 1788. And when he was released, he said something really profound. He was released because the merit of supporting Jews living in Israel. That's not why he was arrested. He said that's why I was released.
It's interesting that the whole organization is founded by Chabad. You're the founder, you're a part of the Chabad movement, and the Chabad movement is a sect of Judaism, as you mentioned, that really believes in Torah values, and one of those values is charity. How important is charity?
It's the core. It's one of the first things you teach your children to give. Put a penny every day into the charity box, into the tzedakah box, give it to a needy person before you eat a meal. I love history. It's a passion of mine, especially within tzedakah charity. The first charity box documented was an idea of the second Chabad leader. And only 60 years later did the blue box, the JNF box, come around. But the first concept of anybody could put a charity box in their home, put a coin in, and fulfill the commandment of giving charity, tzedakah, that concept was started by one of our founders.
Charity is so important in Judaism. We are now in the time of Hanukkah, and during Hanukkah, everyone talks about the presents, the 8 nights, we light the candles, we give kids presents, but one of the nights in my family tradition is that we actually go and we do charity. And that, I think, for my kids is the most exciting night. Why do you think that it's so important not just to give charity, but to get the joy of giving charity?
Because giving is fun. Everybody always talks about how it's not what you have, it's what you give. But anyone that's given, it's addictive. You want to give more, you want to give more. My wife doesn't let me have cash because she knows I'm going to give it all away. So it's a great feeling. It's hard to find someone that doesn't give in general. They might not understand why, but once you give, you want to give. Unfortunately, not that many people have, but you have something, you give a little bit. And it's part of our DNA, since Abraham and his tent, when he had 4 doors open. Anybody that was in the desert was able to stop by, get a meal. It's what we do.
Let's go back to Pantry Packers. Give us some numbers. How many people you're actually helping?
So there's currently over 200,000 families in Israel suffering from severe food insecurity. That means they're skipping meals regularly, not by choice. We're currently feeding 47,000 families monthly. They get a food debit card, our ACEJ card. They can go to any supermarket, and dry goods, fruits and vegetables are delivered to their homes. Some of those are actually packed at Pantry Packers, like you came with your family. So Pantry Packers, like you said, you've come. We created a factory, broke up the process. So you fill the bags, weigh the bags, put on stickers, label it, expiration date, sealing it. So all the steps as if you'd want to go to a real factory. It's the exact same things happening, but here you're able to put on an apron, a hairnet. I'm sure you remember the great pictures, and have a lot of fun and count the bags. So it's hands-on. You're touching the food, and you know that this food is going to a family within a couple of weeks that treasures it and truly appreciates it.
You know, Pantry Packers has become a huge hit in Israel. During the holiday times, it's almost impossible to get an appointment, even to volunteer. Is it like that year-round, or are there peaks and valleys?
Well, during Thanksgiving week, fully booked, and Hanukkah, you need to call Menachem, find my cell phone to just get squeezed in. It's booked in advance, and I'm quite proud of what we've been able to create, but there's a lot of room and growth where we're going, and of course a lot of the funding. You know, it's always a challenge to help pay for all the food product that goes out. I turned giving into an experience, and it needs to be.
Menachem, there are literally tens of millions of people watching this show. What message do you have for our viewing audience?
For those of you that are coming to Israel, go to our website, sign up to volunteer. If you can't make it, stay on our website and make a donation. It helps us feed so many families throughout the country every single day.
Thank you, Menachem, for being on the show. And thank you for tuning in to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein, wishing you a happy Hanukkah. Now back to the studio.
And now, the truth from Zion.
Open societies operate on trust. Iran's rulers have learned to turn that trust into a weapon. They cannot allow free debate at home, so they push and pull on free debate abroad, online, on campuses, and inside activist groups, until neighbors, classmates, and even family members are arguing with each other. The aim is not to win a debate. The aim is to make the West so busy fighting itself that it stops paying attention to what Tehran is doing. It started on social media. More than a decade ago, Iranian operatives began building pages that looked local and harmless. One page posed as a neighborhood news site. Another pretended to be a veterans group. A third looked like a forum for parents. They copied real photos, lifted posts from genuine users, and slipped in their own messages. Crime, prices, immigration, Israel, elections, whatever was the hot topic of the day. The trick was simple: make the content feel familiar, then steer the mood. By the late 2010s, the platforms had seen enough to recognize patterns. Facebook, Twitter, and others took down whole clusters of accounts that traced back to Iran. Some of it was clumsy and was discovered quickly. Some of it ran for months before anyone noticed. In 2020, the tactics turned ugly. Voters in the United States received threatening emails telling them to stay at home or else. Investigators later learned the operation came from Iran. The goal was to create fear, make people feel watched, make them doubt the safety of taking part in an election, and make neighbors blame each other. Universities and policy centers became targets as well. Iranian officials tried to cultivate Western academics and researchers who would repeat Tehran's talking points. Tehran recruited respected voices to make Iran's lies sound normal in the classroom, online, and in the news. When terrorists struck Israel, Iranian-linked accounts flooded social media platforms with anti-Israel slogans and edited clips. On Western campuses, some of the loudest online cheerleaders for aggressive protest, including encampments that harassed Jewish students, were accounts that looked American, but in fact were not. In city politics, Iranian-linked pages posed as local outlets and tried to organize marches, flood comment threads, and make extreme positions look like the new common sense. By 2024, Western governments and tech companies began speaking more openly. Platforms announced takedowns of Iranian-coordinated, inauthentic behavior. Cybersecurity firms documented how the same operators hopped from site to site, changing names but not topics. This was not a few bad posts. It was an ongoing operation to keep the West off balance. Of course, ordinary dissent is legitimate. People disagree in free countries, as they should. Iran's rulers try to stoke those disagreements, push them to extremes, and make the public and Western societies tear at their own bonds. Meanwhile, as the fight rages online and on campus, the radical Islamic regime in Tehran wants the world to look away from what it is doing. Jailing journalists, beating women, arming terrorist militias from Lebanon to Yemen, and continuing to develop a dangerous nuclear program. This is how you use democracy against the West, not by defeating it in honest argument, but by hijacking its openness.
Iran has hijacked the free world's love of democracy for their own evil designs. This terrible regime uses our faith in freedom to push their propaganda through institutions designed to protect our rights and values.
Free societies can protect themselves if they are aware of what is happening and take action. Platforms can label state-linked networks so the public sees where a message comes from. Universities and think tanks can disclose foreign funding and contacts in plain language. Iran's system uses our freedoms of speech, press, and assembly as a way to run influence operations. The West needs to use those same freedoms, backed by facts and the rule of law, to expose and deter the manipulation. For democracy to thrive, it is critical to keep the public square open, but also to keep it honest. From Jerusalem, this is the truth from Zion. Up next, the ICEJ Report from the International Christian Embassy, Jerusalem.
During the many long, difficult months of the current conflict in Israel, the International Christian Embassy, Jerusalem, has been helping with war relief across the country, especially by providing urgently needed emergency and medical equipment. The ICEJ has donated 5 new ambulances to Israeli medical teams this year, including a fully equipped military ambulance to serve Israeli communities near the Gaza border, 2 new ambulances for Magen David Adom, a special ambulance to serve elderly Holocaust survivors in Haifa and northern Israel, and an extra-large custom ambulance to serve special needs children in the center of the country. Over the past year, the ICEJ also has donated 2 new Mediscooters to Magen David Adom and 8 new all-terrain vehicles to fight fires and respond to emergencies caused by rocket attacks. We also have equipped first responder teams along the northern and southern borders with dozens of paramedic kits, 21 defibrillators, over 400 special sets of radio transmitters, and 140 protective helmets and vests. The ICEJ has also provided 32 life-saving portable bomb shelters and renovated 187 underground shelters in vulnerable communities in the Negev and Galilee regions. The Christian Embassy has a deep attachment to the people of Israel, and we are firmly committed to helping this nation overcome the many challenges of this war, so they can restore their sense of security and start to rebuild their lives.
Since 1980, the International Christian Embassy Jerusalem has been a voice of Christian support for Israel and connected the global church to the land of the Bible. Headquartered in Jerusalem, the ICEJ has taken action to stand with Israel by caring for Holocaust survivors, helping Jewish families return home to Israel, providing bomb shelters, fighting anti-Semitism around the world, and by inviting Christians to discover Israel for themselves. After Hamas brutally attacked Israel on October the 7th, 2023, the ICEJ has been actively standing with Israel and her people through advocacy and urgently needed aid projects. Now is the time for Christians to turn their love for Israel and the Jewish people into real action as never before. Your donation will help deliver bomb shelters to at-risk areas, provide necessary supplies for first responders, support affected citizens with trauma care, and will eventually help rebuild these devastated communities. Visit ICEJUSA.tv to donate online or call 1-800-910-6355 and give your generous gift today.
That's all for this edition of Israel Now News. I'm Erin Viner, wishing our Jewish viewers a Chanukah Sameach. Happy Chanukah.
And I'm Yochanan Elrom, reporting from our studio in Jerusalem. Join us again next week for all of your Israel updates.